The video shakes, and that's when he says another person out of nowhere begins punching him.
It was lights out. I got attacked from behind, from a defenseless position.
This is Bishop Robert Stearns. I'm here on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. The Mount of Olives is just behind me. And Solidarity Sunday 2025 was an incredible coming together of Jews and Christians standing in solidarity together, declaring never again. I want to invite you to join me as you hear the speeches, the testimony, the witness firsthand of Jewish leaders who are standing strong and proud in the midst of attack, in the midst of this rising anti-Semitism. They are raising their voices, and we are forming a wall of protection around them. Join me as you hear their amazing stories.
Solidarity Sunday is a day that we stand with Israel. And the reason that we stand with Israel is important to know. There are even some different kinds of teachings and theologies that would seek to oppose the biblical teaching of how Christians and Jewish people connect and what debt they may owe each other or how they are in relationship with God. We know that all of our heroes we find in the Bible, right? And this Bible, the New Testament, is a work that was after the life and ministry of Christ, but the Old Testament is Jewish teaching. Are we to stand with them just out of principle? Are we to agree with them because it's what Christians ought to do? What's the Bible say? Well, I want to take you just briefly and quickly to a section of Scripture found in Romans 11, which helps us understand what Paul communicates about our responsibility. I'll start in verse 11 of chapter 11. Speaking of the Jewish people, did God's people stumble and fall beyond recovery? Of course not. Were they disobedient, or they were disobedient, so God made salvation available to the Gentiles? But he wanted his own people to become jealous and claim it for themselves. Now, if the Gentiles were enriched because of the people of Israel, because they turned down God's offer of salvation, think how much greater a blessing the world will share when they finally accept it. I'm saying all of this especially for you, for us, you Gentiles. God has appointed me as the apostle to the Gentiles. I stress this, for I want somehow to make the people of Israel jealous of what you Gentiles have, so I might save them, or save some of them. For since their rejection meant that God offered salvation to the rest of the world, their acceptance will be even more wonderful. It will be life for those who were dead. And since Abraham and the other patriarchs were holy, their descendants will also be holy. Just as the entire batch of dough is holy, because the portion given as an offering is holy. For if the roots of the tree are holy, the branches will be too. Paul goes on to talk about the natural branch being cut off the olive tree and the unnatural branch, which is the Gentiles, being grafted in. But then he issues a stern warning to that unnatural branch. He says, don't think for a second that if God was to remove the natural, that he wouldn't do the same to the unnatural. And that he has covenant and has promised to regraft that natural branch in. There's no room in this church or in proper theological understanding of Scripture to reject the notion that Israel is God's people. God, if we know anything from Scripture, we know this, that when God makes a promise, he keeps it. And he does not break covenant. We might break covenant. As a matter of fact, history proves that we're horrible at keeping covenant. But it also proves that he's perfect at it. And so what we can be assured of is that because those patriarchs, the Jewish people, have kept the word of God, have provided it to the world, that we owe a debt of gratitude, a debt of prayer, and a debt of support. This morning we have a special speaker. His name is Max Long, and he's going to join me actually right now. You can give him just a welcome. Max Long is a soldier in the IDF. He's a student at DePaul University in Chicago. He was born and raised in America, but also lives in Tel Aviv, part-time, I believe. Part-time here, part-time there. And he has a testimony and a story to share with us this morning.
I want to thank Pastor Mark and this entire congregation. The energy here is amazing, and it's an honor to be a part of this. But also, I used in the previous slide a picture of the American and Israeli flag. And I think that is a great demonstration of the connection between the U.S., the values of America and what we believe, but also what is of that of Israel and the importance of Israel and the connection between Israel and the United States. And so thank you for welcoming into your space of worship, into your community, and for letting me share my story. So as the pastor mentioned, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I am one of 5 siblings. I was raised in a Jewish American house. The values that that were carried with me through my parents started with this beautiful woman. This is my grandmother, May Long. And when I talk about my journey to Israel, it wouldn't be right to talk about that without mentioning the influence that she had. She instilled the idea of Zionism in all of us, in all of her grandchildren, all of her children. The connection that we had growing up to Israel and the understanding that we had of this land that we talk about covenants, the promised land. We as a Jewish people have our covenant with God that we are the chosen people, and this is the land, this is our homeland. Growing up, going to rallies, going to churches, she started this organization, Christians and Jews United for Israel. She knew back then that Jewish voices, unfortunately, in the diaspora outside of Israel, were the minority. And we need our allies, our brothers and sisters, to stand with us, to amplify our voices and ensure that everyone understands the importance that Israel holds, the land of Israel, to the Jewish people, and that connection cannot be broken. I grew up with those values. I grew up with that belief, but I wanted to take that a step further. I decided in 2015, right after graduating high school, that my path wasn't to go right to college, that I had a different path. I decided to move to Israel and enlist in the IDF to see firsthand what it is that I'm defending, what it is that, my whole life I had been told, Israel, our connection to Israel. We must always support Israel, talk about Israel, and ensure that that is an integral part of our lives, wherever we are, whether it's in the land or in the diaspora. So I decided to be there and go there firsthand and see what it's all about. I drafted to the Army in 2015. I had to go and learn Hebrew, new culture. It wasn't all just you show up and it made sense. It did not. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. You're in a foreign army, in a foreign language, and I'm just a Jewish American kid from Boston. So I had a lot of lessons to learn. But I was determined. And when anyone asked me where I wanted to go in the Army, I said, I wanted to get to the best place I could. I wanted to give all that I could give in my service to defending the state of Israel. In 2016, after finishing training, my team was deployed to the Gaza border. At the time, our unit specialized in identifying and locating terror tunnels. And in 2016, 2017, it became very relevant. We began uncovering cross-border terror tunnels that came from the Gaza Strip into Israel, sometimes even miles into Israel. These tunnels were purposed to catch Israel by surprise one day and to commit atrocities against our people on the communities on the border. My initial service ended in 2018 after 2 deployments, one in Gaza and one on the Lebanese border. And in 2018, I was getting released. I had to make a decision. Stay in Israel, continue that journey. And that's what I decided to do. I decided I had a calling. I experienced so many hardships as a foreigner enlisting in the IDF, and I knew I wasn't the only one going through such hard experiences. I came to find out later on that I wasn't unique in that sense of was born and raised in the US and decided to move to Israel later in life and join the army. There's actually a term for that in Israel. It's called a lone soldier. It's a special status given to others like me that come from around the world under this calling to defend the homeland. There are approximately 7,000 active lone soldiers in the IDF at all times, and a number that we actually just recently were able to track and find out is there are, in addition to those 7,000 active reservists, there are 8,000 reservists, men and women, going back to Israel since October 7th and defending the Jewish people and defending the homeland. It was that understanding which brought me to the realization is there needs to be more support. And so in 2018, along with 2 other friends, I established Growing Wings. Growing Wings is a nonprofit for lone soldiers, and the idea was to connect a network of offerings. The pain points of lone soldiers, what are they missing, and how can we help ensure that they have those things while they're defending our country. With that, we have developed a network of over 150 beds. We have connected mental health services for our soldiers coming out of battle. And in addition, and one of the most important, a community. We provide community and support for these soldiers during and after their service. To date, we've supported over 5,000 IDF soldiers, and in 2025, we strive to help a lot more. That was my life pre-October 7th. Waking up, thinking about how can I help others and how can I make the world a better place. I loved life. Every morning, it was exciting, solving problems and helping my own community. In August of 2023, after a lot of thinking, I decided that it came time, after developing our program in Israel, that it was time to bring that awareness back here to the US, to garner more support for this incredibly specific demographic of lone soldiers. More people need to know about this, that they're coming from all over the world to serve and defend. I decided I would move in November of 2023. Obviously, my plans changed, and that's what brought us to the morning of October 7th. On October 7th, I was living in Tel Aviv. I woke up, like the rest of the country, to the sound of rocket sirens blaring, my apartment shaking. It was something I had never experienced in my 9 years of living in Israel. I knew that this wasn't the typical back and forth conflict that we had experienced, but that this was something different. I get a call from my commander telling me we have to go and report, and that I need to pick him up because his car was hit, direct impact by a rocket, in Tel Aviv, less than 5 minutes away from me. Without even thinking, I packed my bags, not knowing for how long, and I picked up my commander, and we headed down south to our base. To describe what that looked like is something I can never describe. We were driving down a highway, and rockets overhead, and all that I could do was pray. Pray that God has a plan, and that something got me to jump into that car that morning without thinking twice. And I knew that I was exactly where I needed to be. We picked up our gear on base, got together as a squad, and immediately were deployed down south with a mission of rescuing civilians that have been trapped. Thousands of Hamas terrorists invaded the border of Israel. The events of the days of October 7th and that followed were horrific to say the least. To witness what we saw that morning, that day, and the days that followed is something that I hope that no one has to experience. 1,200 innocent people massacred on Simchat Torah, a day of happiness, where people are dancing in the streets of Israel, thanking God for giving us the Torah. And on that very morning, that happiness was shut down by terrorism. 250 innocent people taken hostage. And while we're operating in that first day, that first week, we know from the reports that we were getting of the scale of this event, we knew that everyone was impacted. Israel's the size of New Jersey. Even before October 7th, if you had asked any Israeli, do you know anyone impacted by wars or terrorist attacks in Israel? Almost everyone was at least once removed. After October 7th, we're now at a place where almost every single person has someone that they're directly, either families or friends, that were impacted by October 7th and in the months that followed. This is to give you an idea of the site as we were coming out of our armored vehicle. Rockets raining overhead. And after that first week, when we started to get our phones and get access, to what was going on outside of our bubble, that's when I got news that Matan, one of my best friends, a friend who showed me the ropes in Israel when I first got there. He was the sound engineer at the Nova Festival, a festival in which hundreds of young Israelis were killed. Matan, instead of finding safety on that day, decided to protect others. Matan made the decision to go back and forth to the festival and pick up innocent people. And it was in one of those rounds that he was going back, he was gunned down and killed by Hamas terrorists. Alon Lulu was one of my friends from my active service back in 2015 to 2018. He was our driver, our combat driver. He was kidnapped from his bed on his kibbutz that morning and taken into Gaza. It was later on in December that we got reports that Lulu was one of the innocent Israeli hostages that had been killed accidentally by Israeli troops in the Gaza Strip. The loss was immense, to say the least. But we had a mission. We had a mission, and we had 250 innocent people that relied on us. This is video from within Gaza after we entered in the end of October. My team tasked with locating terror tunnels and searching for hostages. What did we come to find? These terror tunnels, this infrastructure created by Hamas, put in the most sensitive locations in Gaza. Hospitals, schools, kindergartens, mosques. They knew that we would go looking for those tunnels because that's where our hostages were. And they knew that entering those locations would bring immense pressure on Israel from the international community. As someone who stepped foot in those schools and saw firsthand how Hamas hijacked this infrastructure for terror purposes. And it goes to show not only what the IDF has to deal with there on a day-to-day basis, but also what innocent civilians in Gaza are dealing with, raised to believe that that is okay. When I said I would wake up every day before October 7th and think about how I can help make the world a better place, what I didn't realize is on the other side of the fence, Hamas terrorists were waking up every morning thinking about how they can destroy Israel. So, Pastor, when you mention, violence, that's not what we want. This was forced upon us on October 7th. And until every single one of our hostages is brought home, it's our duty and our responsibility to go out there and do everything to put pressure on Hamas to release them. This picture says a lot. I was born and raised to love. And to love my community, to love my people, and to love the land, this incredible place that is the only place that we have to call home. Throughout that war, I was released in March of 2024. And it was then that I had to decide, what's next? Until I get called back for more reserve duty, what is my calling? What is my place? Where is my belonging? I knew that I had a new mission. How do I keep the lives of these precious souls alive? How do I share their stories? Gal and Eyal were killed when a booby trap tunnel exploded feet away from me. I was thrown by the impact of the explosion. And when I got up in that moment, I immediately thought I had been injured in some capacity. I looked to see if I was bleeding, and that's when I noticed my two friends on the ground. I quickly went to render first aid, but it was too late. Dennis and Juan were in a different squad in our unit, and they were killed in a similar attack when a terror tunnel blew up preemptively. The understanding of loss is something that I will never understand. It's more, how do you move forward? And for me, it's by having a mission, by having my purpose when I wake up every day. Where can I go share the light that those people brought into this world? And how can I go beyond that and share the facts? What is really going on over there? In March of 2024, I moved back to the US, knowing that I would be back and forth to Israel. But I knew that I had a mission here. One, it was time to go to college. I didn't have a college degree. I decided to join a program that I could become a part-time student. I went to DePaul University, and that's where I noticed the second day coming into classes, when I saw my fellow students standing with signs, and I didn't understand what those signs said. And as I got closer, I saw pictures of Hamas terrorists. I didn't understand, how is this possible? What is this? As I come to find out, it was called a Rally for the Martyrs, where hundreds of students took part in honoring Hamas terrorists that committed the atrocities of October 7th, and that were actively holding over 200 hostages still in tunnels in Gaza. Yet on a college campus in the US, students are supporting this. It came to as a complete shock. I walked around campus with a hood over my head, not knowing what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to share my message if this seems to be a large majority? I struggled a lot over those months, and I got called back to more reserve duty in May of 2024. That round, I was for about a month and a half in Rafah, in the Philadelphia corridor, once again locating terror tunnels and participating in missions to bring back our hostages. My team participated in 2 sensitive missions in which we recovered the bodies of Israeli hostages from terror tunnels in Gaza. And it was after that round of reserves, coming back to the US, I kept thinking, how am I going to do it this time? What is going to be my way? I couldn't come back here and continue to walk around campus with a hood over my head. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I stand for, stood for, and will always stand for. So I had to get strategic. In September, the Jewish New Year, I decided I'm going to go out and start some dialogue. Let people come ask me questions. It was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, a day that we eat apples and honey, which represents us bringing in a sweet new year. And I decided to hand out apples and honey to passerbyers, and with the hope that they would want to engage in dialogue. I stood there with a sign that said, "Come talk about Israel," with an IDF soldier. My hope was that people would want to listen and ask questions. The conversations were incredible. I showed videos, shared my personal experiences, stories of my friends who I had lost, and I was shocked to the level of acceptance, but also the compassion that I got from my fellow students. That's where I realized I'm onto something. This is what is needed. More interactions with IDF soldiers. More people to humanize what it is, who it is that we are. You hear so many negative connotations of IDF soldiers, but I'm one of those. And it was enough for me to stand in front of that 1 or 2 individuals, students, and show them the truth, my truth. And from there, hope that I can call them an ally at this point. I started doing this once a week. For over a month and a half, every Wednesday, for 3 hours a day, I would stand there, get a lot of pushback, but also had a lot of positive interactions. Dialogue. That's what my goal was. Engage in dialogue and share what it is that is actually going on over there. On November 8th, I don't think, is there no sound?
Beaten, according to police, as he and another Jewish student were standing outside the Lincoln Park Student Center. Max Long and Michael Kaminsky are beat up. Just out of the hospital, they're sore and aching.
Trying to cope with everything that happened. Pretty traumatic experience.
Max has a concussion, Michael a fractured wrist after they were attacked on their own college campus.
I didn't ever believe that something like this could happen.
Max was standing outside the student center as he does every week, holding a sign, donning the Israeli flag, and offering to speak with passersby about the war in Gaza. He knows it intimately.
I was in Israel on October 7th. I was called up with my team.
A reservist with the Israeli military, he was deployed by the Israeli Defense Forces after the attack in 2023, part of a counter-explosive unit recovering hostages. This summer, when Reserve Staff Sergeant Long moved to Chicago and enrolled at DePaul University, this became his new focus of operation.
I was there. I saw these tunnels under schools, under hospitals. I witnessed firsthand the things that I was hearing people say over here that were fake and were not true. And so it became this mission of I need to make sure that the truth is told.
An honest, peaceful, and mostly constructive endeavor, he says.
I would say 90% of the conversations were positive. You know, it was students truly wanting to hear more, to learn more from someone who's there.
Until Wednesday afternoon, when two men in ski masks hit him from behind and pushed down his friend, another Jewish campus leader, standing alongside him.
It was quite a beating while I was on the ground.
Max had his phone recording in his pocket when he saw the masked man approach. You see him in this video. He even shook his hand.
He spoke to me for a good, I would say minute and a half, 2 minutes. And we were engaging.
The video shakes, and that's when he says another person out of nowhere begins punching him.
It was lights out. I got attacked from behind, from a defenseless position.
Michael was also badly injured, his arm still wrapped in bandage.
I never thought that me continuing to doing my activist work would put a target on my back.
Chicago police now investigating this as a hate crime, releasing these photos of the suspects they're looking for. Despite this traumatic experience, the two students say they refuse to cower to fear and intimidation and plan to continue advocating for open dialogue.
So this doesn't stop you from
Not at all.
wanting to have that conversation?
Not at all. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, and that's what happened on November 8th. I was beaten unconscious from behind by two masked individuals. And Michael, a fellow Jewish student who came to my aid, was also attacked. Chicago police have yet to find the attackers. But what surprised me the most right after the attack, when I stood up, was the response I got from other students, coming up and telling me that I got what I deserved for my participation in the genocide. There is a massive gap in understanding of what the reality of the situation is, and the goal going out there once a week was to start to lessen that gap. In the days that followed, these posters were placed all around campus. There was a sit-in by about 50 to 100 students in the library of school in which everyone held up this poster. Attempts to intimidate, but I know at the end of the day, my message is clear and my message is one of truth. And so I cannot be afraid to share that truth. After the attack, I decided that this is even more of a reason to continue going out there. Maybe not in that capacity, but to ensure that the stories and experiences of those who were there on October 7th and after reach audiences like this. You know, when we talk about the fact that Monday, tomorrow, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. You know, and my whole life I had been raised along the slogan of never again. Never again, in the context of the Holocaust, was that never again can we stay silent and allow the events, such events, to take place. And never again can we stay silent when we witness anti-Semitism, and we cannot allow anti-Semitism to become a norm in our society. Before October 7th, never again was in the framework of the Holocaust. And what I saw and witnessed on October 7th is what could happen if that message isn't understood by everyone. Never again is now. And we, as a Jewish people, unfortunately, we're a minority. And we need your voices. And when I say we need your voices, I mean we need your support, but we need help amplifying our voices, the voice of truth, to ensure that the different narratives going around are corrected and that the facts are what reach general public. So when we talk about what it means to take action, you know, these are the different ways that I see and ask of everyone, Jewish, non-Jewish, of anyone who believes in life and values, and the values that we as Americans believe. And so what we say is, and what I ask, speak up. Within your own communities, online, we need more support and we need more advocates. Support, and what I mean by support, I mean initiatives, Israeli initiatives supporting the Jewish communities in the diaspora, ensuring the safety of our Jewish leaders so that we're not getting attacked on college campuses. Visit. I understood from Pastor Mark that, you know, there might be an opportunity in the next year for a visit to Israel. And I implore you, if you've never been, it's a place that you have to see. You know, when you do go, and I hope to see you there, I plan to be there whenever that is, you'll see and you'll witness firsthand the determination and the resilience of the Jewish people. And what it looks like when you are fighting a seven-front war, yet Israel and Tel Aviv, it's still as alive as ever. Jerusalem, it's as if there is no war going on, but in the hearts of every Israeli, they know the sacrifices that are being made each day on the battlefield. And lastly, pray for the safe return of our hostages still in Gaza, and for the safety of the Israeli soldiers putting their life on the line every day to bring our brothers and sisters home. For more information, also to get in contact, and I'll share with Pastor Mark. My goal one of my major goals is to continue the legacy that my grandmother started. You know, while she's not able to express with words, I can see it when I go and visit. I walk in and she immediately starts crying. She sees me on the news. She sees me standing up here. And I'm proud to continue what she started in the bond between the Christian and Jewish communities, and together ensuring that the narrative and the support for Israel and the importance of your support for Israel and the Jewish people to be understood and recognized. I want to thank you all for inviting me and for the warm welcome, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
These stories, these testimonies are overwhelming. It's amazing to hear the strength, the perseverance, the resilience of the Jewish people. I want to invite you to join me and come alongside our covenantal older brother in faith, the Jewish community. You can do that by going to eagleswings.org and becoming a partner today. You can plant a tree in Israel in our forest of life, an amazing, amazing forest that literally the desert is blossoming as the rose. You can feed hungry Israeli families through our Abraham's Bread feeding program. There's so many different ways for you to be involved, but let me hear from you today. Make your best gift today and ask your church to be involved in next year's Solidarity Sunday. All of the information is there in the link. We are believing that hundreds and hundreds of churches are going to join together every year and understand that never again is now, and we have to be a part of that solution. I look forward for your prayers, your giving, your partnership, making a difference in this generation. Solidarity Sunday, be a part of it.